Did you know that in colonial America during the 17th and 18th century, nearly 1 in 3 brides was pregnant on her wedding day? According to Population Studies Journal, practices like bride auctions, trial marriages, and public punishments for sexual offenses were also common. Colonial life was filled with practices and norms that seemed downright bizarre by today's standards. After hours of research, I'm going to show you 10 bizarre practices from colonial times that are sure to shock you. Number 1. Boarding and bundling beds. Back in colonial America, 2 fascinating practices called boarding and bundling were quite common, though they might seem odd today. At the time, they aligned social norms with the practical and moral values of the era, showcasing the challenges of rural life and the chilly winter months. Boarding was a charming tradition that served as a trial run for marriage. Travel back then could be quite an adventure, with muddy roads and long distances separating hopeful suitors. So, when a young man showed serious interest in a woman, her family often welcomed him to stay overnight, but with some very specific rules in place. The couple would share a bed, yet a wooden plank, known as a bedboard, was placed between them to maintain some space. This clever setup enabled private conversations to uncover compatibility without physical intimacy. Parents often monitored to ensure boundaries were respected. However, we all know human nature can be a bit unpredictable, and some couples found creative ways to navigate those boundaries, leading to quick engagements and even surprise pregnancies. Bundling, on the other hand, was a favorite in colder regions like Pennsylvania and New York, with roots in both Dutch and English traditions. This practice also allowed couples to share a bed, but they would be wrapped in separate sacks or divided by a bundling board to keep things proper. It served a practical purpose. Traveling to visit a sweetheart in the freezing weather often meant cozying up overnight, but it also offered a special chance for couples to connect emotionally before making that big commitment. Even though religious leaders usually frowned upon bundling, seeing it as a tempting practice, many families embraced it as a way to consider a future spouse's character thoughtfully. Number 2. Marriage by proxy. Imagine planning the most important day of your life, yet having your future spouse absent for the exchange of vows. This was a common situation in colonial America, especially during war times or when wealthy families sought to strengthen alliances across great distances. Marriage by proxy emerged as a thoughtful solution to these challenges. In this arrangement, a beloved representative, often a family member or close friend, would step in for the missing bride or groom during the ceremony. This practice has rich historical roots in Europe and was especially prevalent among the aristocracy, where securing inheritances or political ties often outweighed the need for physical presence. For colonial Americans, proxy marriages were less about grand displays and more about honoring family legacy and ensuring economic stability. One common scenario involved soldiers deployed far from home. A brave soldier who was still fighting could wed his beloved to safeguard her social standing and inheritance. Upon his return, the couple would celebrate their union in person. You can clearly see how the needs of the time influenced customs, especially in an era when practicality was often valued more than romance. Number 3. Early marriages. In the old American days, marriages were often focused on survival and the community's needs rather than love. Many girls, some as young as 12, were legally paired with men much older than themselves. While this practice may seem harsh to us today, it emerged from a practical perspective. Early marriages helped secure family alliances, expand landholdings, and ensure that the next generation was born into a stable environment. Young brides quickly embraced their new adult responsibilities, managing households, tending to crops and livestock, and nurturing children, all while striving to meet the expectations of their communities. For families, marrying off their daughters early was seen as a protective measure for their futures. However, for the girls, this often meant putting aside their childhood dreams to embrace their responsibilities. While this tradition fostered stability, it also underscored the challenges young women face. Family expectations and cultural obligations limited their freedom and choices, causing many to feel overshadowed by social norms in their family lives. Number 4. Dowry marriage pressure. The saying, "money talks," couldn't be more accurate in colonial marriage negotiations. A woman's dowry, including land, livestock, or cash, often played a crucial role in determining her marital options. Wealthy families generally found it easier to arrange favorable matches for their daughters, while those from less affluent backgrounds faced significant hurdles in finding suitors. A generous dowry could elevate a woman's social standing and secure her future. Still, it also meant that her worth could be reduced to a list of material possessions. This really put immense pressure on many brides, who were caught between their family's hopes and their dreams, fully aware that their options depended heavily on what their family could provide. This dowry system illustrated a society that valued property and alliances over personal connections. While it offered a degree of financial security, it frequently overshadowed the bride's individuality, treating her as a mere means to an end in the quest to maintain family wealth and status. Number 5. Trial marriages. Before saying "I do," some adventurous couples in colonial times took a unique step: trial marriages. These informal arrangements allowed partners to live together and see how well they clicked before committing a lifelong commitment. You might wonder how trial marriages were conducted in a society that deeply valued tradition and morality. And you're not wrong. Often welcomed by open-minded individuals or in areas with relaxed societal norms, these opportunities allowed couples to learn about each other's habits, address possible conflicts, and decide if they truly wanted to spend their lives together. Of course, these marriages did carry some risks. If things didn't work out, it could affect both parties' reputations, especially for the woman. And if a pregnancy occurred, the situation could become even more complicated, often leading the couple into marriage regardless of how well they matched. Though not widely accepted, trial marriages provided a practical view of relationships in colonial America, merging old traditions with new ideas and showing that even strict societies valued long-term happiness. Number 6. Marriages as business deals. In colonial America, marriage was more than just love and romance. It was often viewed as a strategic partnership among the wealthy elite. Families saw marriage as a wonderful opportunity to strengthen relationships, expand their estates, and enhance their social or political reach. The joining of two individuals represented the beautiful blending of two family legacies, and careful negotiation took place before the joyous occasion. These discussions weren't just casual chats over a cup of tea. Families would come together to create formal agreements outlining the contributions each party would make. Land, livestock, or even political connections were central to these thoughtful conversations. A prosperous landowner might hope to join his daughter with the son of a politically connected family, crafting a partnership that benefited everyone involved. Romantic feelings might develop over time, but many found marriage to reflect family expectations rather than personal desires. As we speak about the bizarre colonial practices, let's talk about the brides who were already pregnant on their wedding day, which I mentioned earlier. But before that, please like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video and would like to see more strange yet fascinating historical facts. Thank you. Now let's continue. Number 7. Premarital pregnancy tolerated with marriage. While colonial society strongly emphasized morality, it wasn't completely rigid regarding premarital pregnancies, especially if the couple planned to marry soon. The arrival of a baby often led to whispers, but as long as a wedding took place before the child was born, communities were generally understanding. This practical approach went beyond mere forgiveness. It aimed to protect reputations and ensure that children were legitimately welcomed into families. Often, a pregnant bride and her groom would hurry to the altar, sometimes with spontaneously arranged ceremonies, before her condition became too obvious. It became a way for families to uphold their dignity in a society that emphasized the importance of marriage and social appearances. However, this necessity burdened women, often pushing them into marriages they might not have chosen if circumstances had allowed for more options. Number 8. Lack of divorce options. Marriage is often viewed as an unbreakable bond, creating a sense of permanence, and it was the same case back then. Unfortunately, divorce was quite rare and came with significant social and legal hurdles. The laws were strict, allowing divorce only in severe cases like desertion, impotence, or extreme cruelty. Even when these serious conditions were met, the entire process could feel daunting. It was often expensive, time-consuming, and, sadly, humiliating, especially for women. As a result, many couples found themselves stuck in relationships that were unhappy, loveless, or abusive. Women were particularly affected by these limitations, as their legal rights were restricted and their economic dependence on men made leaving incredibly challenging. Often, they were expected to endure difficult circumstances for the sake of family reputation or societal pressures. Number 9. Sexual offenses punished publicly. In colonial America, sexual offenses like adultery and fornication were taken very seriously, and the punishments reflected the community's commitment to moral order. Offenders often faced public punishments that were not only severe, but also quite humiliating, serving as a cautionary tale for others. Punishments varied widely, including fines and public whippings, and extended to time in the stocks, where the community could voice their disapproval. Women accused of adultery sometimes endured the burden of wearing a scarlet letter, marking them with public shame. Men, on the other hand, often faced public flogging. These instances of public shaming did more than just punish. They became communal events that portrayed shared values and reminded everyone of the importance of adhering to accepted behavior. Even though the penalties were harsh, it's important to understand that these offenses happened frequently, showing that human nature often clashed with strict moral codes. Number 10. Bride auctions in extreme cases. In some of the toughest moments faced by colonial families, a desperate and harsh practice emerged known as bride auctions. While not very common, these auctions are proof of the severe economic struggles of the time. Women were often seen as vital economic contributors and were auctioned off to the highest bidder, with their future resting in someone else's hands. These events were not about love or even rational choices. They were a response to the dire need for survival. For families overwhelmed by financial difficulties, marrying off a daughter to the highest bidder was sometimes the only option they had left. Unfortunately, women's consent was rarely a part of the equation, leaving their destiny in the control of the purchaser. This sad practice stripped women of their rights, treating them as objects instead of partners. It shows how economic despair can twist societal values, putting survival ahead of personal dignity and individual choice. What do you think was the most unusual or surprising practice? Are there any traditions you'd love or hate to see make a comeback? Tell us in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, thanks for watching.